Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. This, from Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, is one of the most iconic opening lines in a piece of literature. It falls number 3 in my list of top 3 opening lines, following behind Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita and Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Rebecca is the kind of book that I can read in one sitting and then read again the next day. It's familiar and comforting to me. I took it on my first international flight and subsequently got too drunk on complimentary drinks to properly enjoy my book. It is the rarest thing. A bookworm's absolute favorite book. Rebecca does not neatly fit into any one genre category. I hesitate to label it a romance because there are romantic parts. The story essentially boils down to studying 2 marriages. But there are also supernatural elements and good old-fashioned suspense. One could read this book and see it as the story of a jilted lover, or of a blossoming relationship, or of a particularly sinister help staff. Either way, it is read. It's a delight every time. In brief, Rebecca tells the story of a young woman who meets a mysterious man, Maximilian de Winter, in Monaco, and having no other real options available, marries him immediately upon being asked and moves with him into his family home in England, Manderley. Mrs. de Winter possesses no first name, none that Daphne du Maurier gave her anyway. Instead, she is a blank canvas. Little is known about her upbringing, and she's not traveling with family. She moves into Manderley, knowing no one, and being incredibly shy. In contrast, the shadow of Rebecca, Max's previous wife, looms large. Rebecca had been a vivacious character, and though she is dead long before we meet her, her presence is maintained by people that knew her that can't stop talking about her. Perhaps because the character is unnamed, I always felt a kinship to Mrs. de Winter. It is easy to find attributes that match you in a character purposefully left blank. On my most recent read-through, I felt more of a connection to Rebecca, who could not defend herself against the demon she had become in Mrs. de Winter's mind. There will always be an ex that is impossible to get over, and Rebecca is a prime example of that. I have considered, as of late, that it may be better to be the ex that leaves such a mark on the world, rather than someone who will never be loved as much. Daphne du Maurier's writing style is one of my absolute favorites. She does not write fussily, but she writes incredibly strong imagery. In particular, the scene in which Max drives the future Mrs. de Winter around as she laments her young age is quite powerful. This genre-bending classic inspires me to be a better writer, though there are many great takeaways from reading this book. To that end, I would encourage any reader to pick up a copy and perhaps to learn something about themselves.